As we get started in Chapter 9, we're going to start taking a look at auxiliary views and how these auxiliary views are going to be created using Inventor. As we get started, I guess the first thing is to actually really start thinking about what is an auxiliary view and why do we have auxiliary views. As far as drawing the parts, we will continue drawing the standard IPT files in the way in which we've done over the previous chapters. But when we start laying this out in a 2D drawing, that's where you're going to really start to see the use of the auxiliary view. The whole purpose of the auxiliary view is to be able to show the true size and shape of the features on particular viewing planes that are not perpendicular to one of our standard projection planes. So up to this point, everything that we've been projecting on our front view, right side, or top view has been perpendicular to that projection plane, and we're seeing the true size and shape. As we get started on our rod guide design, we are going to be looking at this surface right here where we don't give a true projection to the front view. So therefore we're going to have to create what's called an auxiliary view, so then that way we can see the actual true size and shape of this feature right here, and then also put the dimensions on that accordingly. As we get started in this this part, what we're going to do is just go ahead and start with the boring technique, where we're going to turn on our work planes and we're going to have these work planes visible as we're creating our sketches. So I'm right clicking on each one of the work planes, and now I'm going to click over here on the view cube and then simply just take a look at the planes that we're working with. So to begin this part, I'm going to start on the XZ plane and go ahead and create the sketch of the base. So sketch up the base, create the 4 holes, and use the fillet. The fillet and the circle, or the hole there, share the same center point. So using that center point, it's easy to go ahead and locate those 4 holes. Once you finish this, let's go ahead and extrude this base up 0.75, and I'm going to just click inside of each one of these planes here and get all of that extruded up 0.75. So now we're going to create a new work plane along the axis of these 2 holes right here. The first thing we're going to do is switch to your view ribbon, and we're going to switch to the wireframe model so we can see our part here. So looking at the XY plane, what we're going to do is switch back over to the 3D model, and we're going to create a new work plane. So we've got the work plane here, and then I want to work off of my y-axis. So with the y-axis selected, I'm going to create a new work plane that's 30 degrees off of my XY plane. So type in 30, and you will see that work plane generate from one side to the other. So this is going to be our new work plane in which we're going to use to generate the next part or feature of our part right here. So I'm going to create a new sketch on this work plane. By right-clicking on the work plane, I'm now in a new sketch, and I'm going to create, new sketch. So I'm going to create my geometry on this work plane. So sometimes it is helpful to turn this to the side and take a look at what you're working with, and even if you prefer to switch back to a different realistic style, if that makes more sense to you, I'm okay with you switching back. So what we're going to do now is work on this particular plane right here as we create our new sketch. Now, the book does not go over this, but I love using what's called slice graphics. If you want to take a look at the plane and what it looks like with just the material there on that particular plane, you can right-click on your plane and then select Slice Graphics, and it basically cuts apart your model, and you can see that plane. So that's just looking straight in on that surface as we create your new sketch. Now, once again, project geometry. This is a great place to use project geometry, because what you can do is bring forward the information that you have on this plane and create your sketch, or create your geometry on that sketch. So with the current sketch that I have, what I'm going to want to do is project geometry and bring forward like the line that we have here. I've got to get to the right surface here. There we go. Well, I'm having a hard time picking that. Let me pick it on this surface here. So there we go. So I'm just trying to get some of the geometry that we have on that, so we can now orient this part and take a look at creating the sketch. With my sketch at this angle right here, if you need to take a look at like the cutout, remember that you can always right click on your view plane and select look at, and that will reorient your screen. So I'm going to go ahead and sketch out the geometry that I need for this piece right here. I'm going to go ahead and lay that out, just doing a quick sketch, and you do the same, and then we'll get back with the actual dimensions, and we'll look at extruding and moving on to the rest of this part. So this is what you should have sketched out. So what we're looking at doing here is sketching that profile on our new work plane. Like I've done before, I had slice graphics. If you don't like the slice graphics, you can always take that out, but that's what we're looking at. So now I'm going to take the rest of this sketch and now include the arc that's at the top, and then also put the hole in this middle here. So on your own, you go ahead and do the same. So with the arc and the circle laid out in our sketch now, what we're going to do is go ahead and extrude this. We're going to create our solid model, and we're going to extrude this and make sure that we're using the symmetric option. So clicking on the profile, what we want to do is we want to have a distance of 1 inch. So it's going to project, ½ inch to the back and ½ of an inch forward, and we will create that geometry there. So taking a look, you should have a couple work planes that are located there. You can see all of the other ones, and that is the actual part that you were looking to create. So hopefully yours came out. If not, you may want to refer to your book for some more instruction, but that is the general part that we are trying to create right now. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to place a hole in the center of this part right here. For clarity, I'm going to go ahead and change the visibility of these work planes. I'm going to go ahead and turn these off to allow us to look at the feature just a little bit more clear, because I'm getting ready to create another work plane. So this is the first one we created. The second one we're getting ready to create is a work plane that is going to be off of this base right here. Using the plane button right here, an offset plane, what we're allowed to do is to select this command, and then we can create a new work plane with a given distance off of that work plane. So when I select that surface there, I'm now prompted to enter a value in which I'm going to have a new work plane create off of that existing surface. So what we're going to do here is create a new work plane that is 0.75 off of this the top of the base right here. Once again, we're going to be sketching and creating a new sketch on this work plane. So you can switch over to the wireframe if you choose to, if that makes a little bit more sense to you. I find it kind of difficult, and I lose sight of what I'm working on. I like to use the slice graphics when I'm creating these drawings. So what I'm going to do right now is just model for you using the slice graphics again. So I'm going to start a new sketch on this current work plane, and then I'm going to right click and go to slice graphics. And now that sends me to the center of that part where I do want to create a new hole. So I'm going to sketch a hole on this surface and give the dimension as 0.25 for the diameter. And then I'm going to finish that sketch. Now that sketch is right there, so I'm going to go ahead and extrude that and cut that up. So I'm going to go cut, changing my direction there, through all, and then that way I'm shooting that hole through the top. So I find that just a little bit easier than using the wireframe. Once you finish with your new work planes, you can either right click on the plane or come over to the side and just turn the visibility off, and that might make your drawing just a little less confusing as you're working on it. So at this point, you should go ahead and save this. What we're going to do next is move over into our view, and we're going to project this into our new drawing using the projection for the assembly. Not assembly, auxiliary. All right. As you have saved this drawing, what we're going to do is start a new title block drawing. As I've given instruction in class, I am preferring you to go ahead and just use the ANSI IDW file for this class. It's just the drawing that I prefer. So we're going to create this new drawing, and to get started off, we are going to change the actual sheet size to a B size. So what I'm going to do here is right click on sheet 1 and go to edit sheet, and simply change the B size from this location. So that's going to bring up a B size title block. The first thing we're going to do is go to Base and bring in the initial view. So this is the front view, and I'm going to go ahead and switch this to the top view, and I'm going to locate the top view in the upper left hand corner. So just want to make sure that my hidden lines are on, so you can see here with this icon selected and it's blued, we do have the hidden lines on, and we want to keep with our normal hidden lines. The only place we don't use the hidden lines is going to actually be in the auxiliary view. So I'm going to place that there. Oops, I did not mean to do that last one there. I'm going to undo that. And I'm going to now project off of this into our auxiliary view. So in order to create the auxiliary view, you're going to need to make sure you select the auxiliary command up here at up in the left hand corner. What you're going to do is activate the view, which is, activating it when you see the red box pop up. You have a couple of pieces of information here. This is the view identifier and the scale. This is a notation that will show up if you want that definition on your base. Typically we don't put that on an auxiliary view. Typically those identifications are put on sections, so I'm going to leave it off for right now. What you do need to select is the inclined plane in which we are using for our auxiliary view. That is going to be this surface right here. When you pick this surface, Inventor is going to generate a true projection of that surface right there. So as we project that down, I'm going to select that. Now, just outside of what's given to us in our textbook, the reason I want you to see what we have going on here is what would we get if we were projecting off of our top view and looking at our front view and our right side view. So if we look at this as our front view, you will see that this view right here of all of this information is really not relevant or is not usable information. There are no true size shapes. All of these are elliptical shapes and cannot be used in dimensioning this part. Even if I projected another view off of that front view, that gives us the right side view, which is another view that is not